Hey, how y'all doing? Back with another episode with Chop It Up with Coco. Um, I really appreciate a lot of the fans and a lot of the friends and the family coming on to the page on YouTube and subscribing and giving their feedback. Again, it's been positive. It's been real cool, and it's been an amazing feeling to hear some of the things that people are talking to me about. A lot of folks living through the same situations that I did, and telling their stories and things like that. So I really appreciate that. And hats off to y'all for communicating with me that way. I really hope that I can be a voice of something that started. Because I think a lot of folks, friends and family, should come out and talk about the things they went through. It's healing, it's fulfilling, and for me to be quiet the way I was growing up in my sports world, it was a pretty much a giant shock for people to know about some of the things that I had gone through in my life, my trials and tribulations that made me who I was. So again, I applaud that. I really, really appreciate the feedback. I really appreciate talking with some folks that I never had a clue that they went through some of the similar things, and for them to talk to me, and they're going to start letting their voice be heard. That to me, that's what I did this, and that's what this is all about. So with that being said, make sure you continue to watch my episodes of my bio of my football career. Please subscribe, and then I'm going to obviously put the bell on there so that you can see all the things that I put out. This is just the beginning of so much stuff that I experienced throughout my life in general, but I thought I'd start off with the football. With that being said, I want to talk about a topic that's important right now. I'm actually going to touch on it just a really little bit right now, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a total segment about this. It's about what's happening right now. Right now, we already got a lot of nonsense going on in our life with the coronavirus and things like that. I hope that all your friends and all my friends and families are staying safe from that, because it's not over. I think we're right in the middle of it, and I would really hate to see and hear of somebody that I care for that catches that and be gone to something that we can prevent. So if you can stay at home, take precautions, take care of yourself, take care of your friends and family, educate them to take care of their bodies and try to stay safe from that. The topic that I want to talk about a little bit now before I jump right into Western Illinois, my college, is the things that's happening in our society. It's been happening for a long time. Black lives matter, but to me, man, all lives matter. I've never saw color as a kid growing up. My folks raised me that way. Even though where I grew up in Wisconsin, Chicagoland area, Waukegan, Zion, Kenosha, we saw a lot of racism. There are a lot of things that I can talk about as a kid. I'm going to on my segment when I talk about Black Lives Matter and all lives matter. I say that because I got a lot of white friends, Asian friends, Hispanic friends from every culture that their lives matter to me. So with that being said, yes, I understand the Black Lives Matter, but the flip side to that coin is it should be all lives, man. Even though we take the blunt of it, black folks, we are sick of it, we are tired of it, but the only way we're going to make this work is to find a solution. We talk about a lot of things that happened 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and it's saddened. And I'm a black man. I went through a lot of it myself. I got a son that I got to raise. So what I want to do, man, on that segment when I talk about Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, let's educate our kids, man. Let's educate our young black men so they know how to deal with these situations. We can pray and hope that these matters change. We can pray and hope a lot of different things, but it's going to be my job, my family, my old lady. It's our job to educate our son so that one day if he gets faced with that situation, he knows how to deal with it. With that being said, I'll leave that for another topic. I'm going to make that one big episode, like I said, about Black Lives Matter. All lives matter, man. That's something that we really need to put our minds, our everything together to try to come up with a solution for our folks, for our people, and for our people that we love. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. This segment right here is going to be about Western Illinois. Took y'all through the Little League career. Took y'all through the high school career. Just finished taking y'all through the junior college career, which is amazing. I hope y'all enjoyed that. And now I'm going to jump right into my college career at Western Illinois. Western Illinois, man, was an amazing place for me. And I'm going to run down a couple of reasons why and the love and the people that I played with and things like that. This one should be fulfilling as well, just like the junior college one was. I went to Western Illinois University. Population of about 30,000 people at that time when I went to Western Illinois. Western Illinois was a small community. It was pretty much just a cottage town. There wasn't very many folks that lived in the community. It was pretty much the college. It was pretty much Western Illinois. Western Illinois was based out of Macomb, Illinois, probably a couple hours west of Chicago, etc. If you don't know where that's at. But Western was cool, man. Let me run you down how I ended up at Western Illinois. Coming out of high school, I heard a lot of negative things, and it made my chip really big on my shoulder about I couldn't play Division I football, couldn't play Division II. Some thought I couldn't play Division III. But my dream, my goal in order was to play Division I football and have an opportunity to play in the NFL. So with that being said, I just remember a lot of folks saying I was too small, I was not fast enough, I wasn't this, I wasn't smart enough, just all the negative things. That's just life, man. If you don't have negative things in your life to push you, what do you have? So coming out of high school, man, my dream was to play Division I football. So I had to stay on my focused path of my dream. And so coming out of high school, didn't have very many schools that was interested. I had a few Division I schools, but back then when I came out, it was that Prop 48, and it was just a rough time that I was coming out. So I realized after talking with some folks that had some good judgments that I needed to go to junior college to try to get myself eligible to play Division I football, because Division III, it wasn't that it was beneath me. Division II, it wasn't that it was beneath me, but I believed in myself so much, my heart, my body, and soul, and all the things that I had gone through and my talent level. I felt like I was an exceptional Division I player, and I wanted to get that chance to prove to the world that I can play Division I football at a high level. So after talking with some folks that meant some things to me, looking at the small offers that I had for Division III, Division II, and very little Division I decided to go to junior college to get my associate's degree, to get my grades up, to kind of start over and learn and get myself together from what I had gone through in high school. So I ended up getting my things together, my facts together, and ended up going to a junior college. And when I went to the junior college, man, it was a great experience. I just went over that with you folks. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I remember playing in a bowl game in northern Iowa. That was a college that was recruiting me. We had that bowl game at a college that I was being recruited by. So it was a pretty exciting atmosphere for me. Western Illinois, Coach Ball, Coach Wood, and those guys were available as well. About to come out of junior college, going to that bowl game, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was excited. I was excited because I had finally in my lifetime got put on a platform to do something that I felt I was really good at, and it was in front of the world. You know what I mean? It was on turf, and I had never played on turf in my life until that bowl game. And I got to that bowl game, man, I was just like in my mind, and again, I was really quiet. I was really closed, but I'm telling you, anybody that really knew Coco play, like I was extremely confident in myself. And I just remember being at that bowl game, and I remember the commentators, and I remember having a meeting with both teams before the big bowl game, and then they kind of like so disrespected us so much. They kept saying the upcoming Iowa Lakes, the up this, we had no chance. And I just, in my mind, I couldn't wait to get on that turf because I had never played on turf. And in my mind, and my players and my teammates, they knew. I was just like, man, I felt they was in trouble because I was already fast. I was quicker than most. But now they got me on turf. Oh, they're in trouble. So with that being said, man, I remember having some legit offers from UCLA, Northern Iowa, Western Illinois, a couple other Division I schools. But let me tell you why I ended up going to Western Illinois. Western Illinois felt like home. I grew up kind of around the way on the streets. I wouldn't say the hood, but yeah, at some points it was. And Western felt like that. That was no knock on other Division I schools. There was no knock on Northern Iowa. There was no knock on none of these other places. And I'm not talking negative about them, but Western felt like home. Western felt like me. And a lot of the guys that played at Western Illinois, just like a lot of those guys that played with me at Iowa Lakes, they felt like brothers. They felt like where I needed to be, And then at the end of the day, your heart can drive you places, but your gut don't lie to you. And my gut had Western written all over it. And I'm going to tell you what made me really want to go to Western. A lot of people didn't think I would go to Western. They thought I would go somewhere else. My decision to go to Western Illinois had two factors. It was one, was Coach Ball. Coach Randy Ball was my head coach when I went to Western Illinois. And I'll get to him down the road on another, on this bio about him. But let me tell you what made me want to go to Western Illinois. I remember visiting, and again, it's not a shot at Northern Iowa. I remember visiting. They had the brand new dome. They had the brand new cleats. They had the brand new turf shoes. They had the brand new Nike gloves. They had everything that every kid in America could probably want to be a part of, but it just didn't feel right for me. Other schools that I visited had all that limelight and all the stuff that was amazing. It's interesting for a young man coming out of junior college. You want to go somewhere and have all the nicest things. Western didn't have the best facilities. They kind of looked like the hood stadium. It wasn't a brand new one. It wasn't raggedy, but it wasn't the best. We probably one of the worst stadiums in the Gateway Conference at the time. But it felt like home. It felt like where I had grew up. It was a comfortable vibe. It was a comfortable feeling in my gut. And like I said, this is the thing that really turned me that way. I remember when Coach Ball and Coach Will came to my place back in Kenosha to meet my folks and look me in my face. And the thing that I was having a problem with my decision making to go to college was I knew I had a small window to try to make it to the NFL because that was my dream. And anybody said that wasn't their dream, then I don't believe you. Because we all wanted to play in the NFL. We all wanted to make money for our families. I know I did. That was my main thing. But I remember mostly all colleges that I spoke with wanted me to convert to a cornerback or to a receiver, which I should have did the receiver thing back then. Looking back, the smartest thing I could have did is play receiver, but I was stubborn and I was had my mindset that I wanted to play running back. But when Coach Ball and Coach Will came to my home in Kenosha, they had no problem with coming to the projects. They had no problem with coming to the hood. They had no problem with coming wherever they had to go to recruit. And a lot of people didn't come recruit us. But let me tell you what really flipped me with Coach Ball and Coach Wilt. Coach Ball and Coach Wilt, man, two of my best coaches I ever had. Coach Wilt was the best coach I ever had, and Coach Ball was the best coach I ever had, and Coach Wilt was the second best coach I ever had. And I never even played defense, and I'll explain to y'all why I feel that way. When Coach Ball came to my house, man, and then, like I said, this during the time that everybody's telling me to switch positions and etc., Coach Ball looked me square in my face, and he said to me that if you come to Western Illinois, he didn't sound like a used car salesman. He didn't sound like he was putting a trickery on. He looked me in my eyes, man, and he was straight up with me, just like Coach Wilt. And they said, if you come to Western Illinois, you're going to have an opportunity to play running back, and I know that's what you like to play. He said, but guess what, though? There are some extremely talented, unbelievable running backs we're going to have, and you're going to have to compete, and you're going to have to earn that. That's not going to be given. We know what you're capable of. We've watched you for the last few years, and, the things you can do, you fit right into what we're trying to do, but that opportunity that you're looking for, you're going to get it at Western Illinois. So again, they never said one thing negative about another school. They never promised me not a damn thing. They just kept it straight up with me. And for me, that's important to me. To look me in my face and tell me something that's real. To look me in my face and be honest with me. That's all any man in the world could want. Tell me what it is straight up and let me decide if I want to be a part of that. And those two men did that to me. So when they came to my spot and they looked me in my face and they told me that I'd get that opportunity and they talked about the other talents that they had, I welcomed that competition. I welcomed that. There were a lot of great guys coming there. You know what I mean? Guys that, 1, 2, and 3 in the nation in rushing, transfers that are monsters at the schools they were at. I absolutely was fully aware of what I was going into and opportunity I was going to be given. And I welcomed that challenge. So with that being said, I really appreciate Coach Ball and Coach Will coming into my life. Coming into my house, coming to see me, the bowl games, being respectful as heck, and just being honest with me. I didn't feel that trust and honesty with other people. And so my gut and my heart told me that this is going to probably be the place for me. Now let's add a little joke to it. Another thing too, being a young black man growing up where I grew up, it was very hard for me to trust anybody, especially going through the things that I had gone through. So I had an extremely hard trust issues. I had trust issues with everybody. For whatever reason, the way my dad and mom was and the way I grew up, I still never judged white folks, even though there was some real bad things that happened to me, to my family growing up. We just never had that ill will to treat anybody else that didn't do that to us that way just because they were a certain color. And I'm so glad that we were that way, and that's the way we live our life. But I remember as a kid being uneducated and not understanding, not knowing. I remember when Coach Ball and them sent me to go visit Western Illinois, man. I flew over there, and it was the first time I'd ever flown. And anybody know Coco, I hate flying. I'll sit up for 2 or 3 days looking at the weather, because I never understood how a big old plane that heavy could take off into the sky, man, and fly over the clouds and things like that. So I just was always uncomfortable with doing anything that I had no control over, like flying or getting on a boat out in the ocean or anything like that. But as a kid, young, I had never flown. Me being ignorant, not knowing no better, I know it now. I thought only people that flew were rich white folks. So as a kid, had never been in a plane, never had no money. For them to send me a plane ticket to go visit their school, just visit their school, and to put me on a plane to go over there, to me, that hit my heart. It made me feel like, damn, they really care for me. And when you're a young black man living the life that I lived, all you want somebody to do is care just a little bit. Just care just a little bit. And then the rest, I'll do it. And I was real big into not letting that man down, not letting Western down, not letting my teammates down. But when they flew me out there, man, and got me a plane ticket to go to Western Illinois to visit it, I just felt like the only people that did those types of things were rich folks, rich white folks. So, I was ignorant. I didn't know no better. But they flew me out to Western, man. And I'll tell you a true story, man. It was in the wintertime. For whatever reason, it's blizzarded, it snowed. I was scared as hell to get in the airplane. And it was a small plane. And it blizzarded, and I still got on that plane. And it took me only about a 40-minute flight, but it was moving, it was snowing, it was the worst flight I had ever had. And it was my first flight, so I thought all flights were like that. But I had to get on that plane just for the simple fact that I was terrified, I was scared as hell, but I was so happy that they had done that for me, so there was nothing going to stop me from getting on that plane and going to Western Illinois. So the it factor to that, man, is when I got to Western Illinois, man, I ran into a familiar face that was very important for me. I got to Western, met some great guys. I remember Edward Joseph was on that recruit visit. He just grabbed my heart from the beginning. Just being him, being real, and being from Chicago and everything about him, he grabbed my heart. But I'm going to tell you the face that really, really, really sold me going to Western Illinois. There was a young man by the name of Buck Phillips, and we all know who he is. He won the Western Illinois' finest. Buck Phillips is one of the best athletes to ever come out of Western Illinois, and a lot of people don't know about Buck. So seeing Buck at Western Illinois, we were real close in size. Buck grew up with my brother. My brother Mike Blaylock, who was one of the best running backs to ever do it. Him and Buck had some history. So Buck grew up like I grew up. I knew Buck. Buck was some years older than me. Like I said, he played football with my brother Mike that was really, really good. And my brother had so much love and so much respect for Buck, man. I never saw my brother worry about anybody, but he was worried about Buck. They played in Zion together the first a year or two at Zion Benton, and my brother was like, man, there's this guy named Buck, man. He's the real deal, and he was afraid of not being able to outperform Buck. But my brother and Buck were like best of friends, man. They were really, really cool. And they had like a little trio, man. There was another gentleman, man. I want to shout him out. His name is Eric Stockton. Eric was the guy, the quarterback of those guys. He looked out for everybody in the world. And I always remember my brother like staying over with Eric and those things. But shout out to Eric Stockton. But I just remember Buck and my brother and Eric always being real close. But Buck was the deciding factor. When I saw Buck Phillips at Western Illinois, I knew his history. I knew his struggles. I knew everything that he had went through, and it was almost identical to mine's. Moving around and doing the things he did. Buck was like myself, didn't say much, quiet. But Buck is definitely one of Western Illinois' finest athletes ever to come up out of there. So when I got to Western, man, and I looked him in his face and we spoke, man, and Buck told me, he said, hey, man, they going to give you an opportunity, man. Coach Ball look you in your face and tell you, he going to do what he tell you. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I wouldn't lie to you. You know what I'm saying? You like a little brother to me. Your brother was like my brother, and we talked about some stories about my brother. Buck would tell me things, and I would just laugh so hard because there were things that only he would know. You know what I'm saying? Only things that I would know. So to see a familiar face, man, grew up where I grew up and did all the things I did, man, that was very comforting for me, and that was really, really it. I already had my mind made. I was more than likely going to go to Western. But when I saw Buck Phillips, man, I just really knew that's where I was meant to be. With that being said, man, I just want to, let y'all know Buck was the real deal, man. We had a common denominator. We both were extreme athletes who we were small, 5'9", 5'10", 160, 170, soaking wet. But everybody misunderstood us, you know what I'm saying? Until we had to prove, like we had to really, really prove being a small guy of what we could do, you know what I'm saying? So like for me, I had some colleges that were interested, and I talked with Buck a few times, and I'm gonna get him on here on the Zoom and let him tell his own side of his story. But he was a player of the year in junior college, moved around different schools. He did so many unbelievable things given all the things he had to go through. So my hat's off to Buck Phillips, man. I really appreciate you being a real one. I really appreciate you, being in my life the way you was, treating my brother the way you treated him and the love he had for you. I really appreciate you on that end. And so when we get on this Zoom, and I'm let you tell your story. But the common denominator we had, me and Buck, we were great punt returners, kick and punt return. We had to do all the extra other little things to get out there and do what we had to do. I went into Western as a running back. My second year I moved to receiver. Buck was a defensive back, but Buck was physical. Oh my God. Buck make people eyes roll in the back of their head. He was one of the smallest men that was one of the most physical men. Probably pound for pound, the most physical guy that I had ever seen hit people. Buck was not playing, and I remember he got a tattoo on his arm. Buck was swole too. Buck was about 170, man, 175, but he looked like he was about 200. And he was so fast and he was so ruthless, man. He hitting everybody. I remember seeing Buck hit on a screen. I remember seeing him hit a lineman. They throw a screen, instead of him going and bang the running back, man, he run through the line and just bust him right in their face and knock them out. But Buck was made of that, man. He was real super physical. He was like a heat-seeking missile, and all that stuff he went through was bottled up and it came out when he played football. But we had a common denominator, man. There was a guy, man, that I want to talk about. There's a guy that I want to talk about. And I'm going to give shouts out to all my Leathernecks, man. Matter of fact, shout out to all the Leathernecks, man. You know what I mean? Both conference champs. But there was a guy that had that I want to talk about next. His name is Lou Nichols. And Lou, man, Lou did all the dirty work, man. Lou was the kind of guy that didn't say very much, real cool with everybody. Lou was swole. He was so solid, man. I wish I'd see a picture of his daddy or somebody, because Lou was so stout and so swole and so thick. But Lou did some things for me and Buck, and I want to talk about that. Lou was very unselfish. He did a lot of the dirty work. Lou played linebacker, outside linebacker for the Leathernecks. Shout out to them Leathernecks, that defense, man. They always went like 1, 2, 3 in the nation. You couldn't do nothing with that Leatherneck defense. Shout out to Coach Wilton, all those guys that was part of that, Coach Melvin, etc. But them Leathernecks defense, man, we was 1, 2, 3 in the nation every year. But let me talk about Lou for a minute. Lou never got no credit for the things that he did for myself, and he did it for Buck Phillips. Me and Buck talk all the time. He like a big brother to me, and that one name kept popping up. You know what I mean? And without that man, a lot of our success wouldn't have happened. So I want to shout you out, man. Lou, I really appreciate you being a dog. I really appreciate you doing all that dirty work for me and Buck, man. Let me tell you who Lou was. Lou was a linebacker, man. He could play safety, he played linebacker, fast, physical, but Lou was our man for this simple fact. He was a wet setter in our punt returns. You know what I'm saying? Like, Buck Phillips would run back kicks like crazy. And I wanted to be like, to me, Buck was like the big brother. You know what I'm saying? So whatever Buck did, I wanted to be better than him. You know what I mean? But Lou used to knock everybody out. I watched Lou do this in the game, and any Leatherneck that played, Lou used to break people's jaws because they didn't see him coming. He used to break their jaws. And if they did see him coming, he used to lay them out on the stretchers. And I'm not being rude to me, but I loved it. Because I knew once I made 1 or 2 miss, or me and Buck, we talk about this, make 1 or 2 miss, and then wherever Lou at on the wall, to the left side or the right side, just make 1 or 2 miss, and then you get to your safety net. Because the first person that he's seeing that's about to get in that wall, Lord have mercy on their soul, man, because he used to knock them out clean. I'm talking about knock them all the way out. But I seen him break a dude's jaw, man. And like I said, it wasn't fulfilling. It was just that all this hard work, all the things that he would do. He was a great defensive guy. He did a great job, was well known. But he really, really made me, and he made Buck on that punt return, man. So shout out to Lou for that, man. Like I said, I loved being knowledgeable about the punt return. A lot of people were scared of the punt return. I wasn't scared of the punt return for the simple fact I was just fearless, and Buck was the same way. And so that's what made us both good returners, is because we came from, there was no fear. We were always small. We was always misjudged. We was always, we had to get in where we could fit in. So that punt return for me was a mismatch, because once I catch the ball and they had to give me 2 yards, I wasn't going to fair catch nothing, and Buck didn't either. But I wasn't fair catching nothing. I remember there was a return in general where, I first got to Western, and if we get these highlights up, you're going to see it. And I remember this, man, like yesterday. I remember getting back there, man, and as a punt returner, I never wanted to hurt my team. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I didn't want to be selfish either. But I just never was fearless. No matter where I played, Little League, junior college, there was no fear in me. When it came to football, I felt like that was just something that I was good at. But I never forget this, man. I got to Western. Buck had moved on, and I was finally getting my opportunity to do what I could do, man. I remember one of my first punt returns. You got to have your heels on the 10-yard line. And I remember they punt the ball, and it's a good punt, and it's in the air, and you never go back. You put your heels at the 10, you don't go back on the 9, the 8, etc. And I remember they kicked it probably to about the 8, and I went back. And you hear Coach Ball and all the guys on the sideline, the coaches talk about, no, get away, get away, get away. What you think I do? I caught that ball, did what I did, went one way because I knew who I had waiting for me. Man, I got to that wall, took it to the house. The rest is history. But the funny thing about that, on the highlights, you see Coach Ball, them all yelling, no, get away. And then as soon as I'm running down the sideline, they jumping up and down cheering and things like that. And then you see the real G, Coach Wilt, just sitting there like this. Not smiling, not nothing, because Coach Wilt wasn't an emotional guy. And I'm gonna talk about him in a minute. But I just had to bring that up, Lou. Lou, you was the real deal, man. I really appreciate the things you did for me and Buck. It always never went unnoticed to us, but people forget about that, man. And like I said, at Western Illinois, man, you made me an All-American because you was knocking people out. And I remember them punting the ball. We had a punter that went to the NFL. He was the real deal, man, and he used to punt them so high. And like I just wasn't afraid, so we would catch 3 and 4 or 5 balls. But I remember watching gunners running down the field. They can't run downfield full speed to go make a tackle on me, only for the fact they looking for Lou. It's funny that you sit back there waiting for the punt, and you can see them, 2 coming, and they jogging, looking around, their head on a swivel, because they don't get their head on a swivel, they're going to get hurt. So with that being said, man, I really want to thank you, Lou, for doing all that dirty work for me, man. I know, Buck, thank you too, man, but I really want to say, man, I thank you for being that guy. You couldn't have found a better guy. Coach Ball, Coach Wilt, special team coaches, a guy that just straight up all in on the team, banging anybody that moved. I want to say thank y'all for picking that guy. But Lou, I had to give you a major shout out for doing that, man, because like I said, you did a lot of dirty work, man, that nobody never said thank you to. And I'm saying it live to the world. Thank you, man. You meant a lot to me at that time. And like I said, man, I say this over and over, but back then we wasn't telling each other how we felt about each other, man. It was our pride. We was young. Wasn't finna tell another man that you looked up to them or thank you. We just wasn't doing it. We was cool in the fan. We embraced each other, but we really wasn't on that. But now we grown men. I look back at my entire career, man. I really sit back, you know, with the people I care for, and I think about those people that helped make me who I was. And man, without a doubt in my mind, man, Lou, you made me who I was, man, on that punt return, the kick returns, but mainly that punt return, man. You was that rock, that shield, man. So thank you so much, man. You know, did a lot of amazing things at Western, but I really appreciate you, man. I knew, and there was a lot of other guys too. Please don't take it the wrong way. There was other guys knocking folks out too. Don't get me wrong, but Lou was that wet setter, and Lou was the one coming to get you, man. Clean him up and get him up. So with that being said, thank you so much, man, Lou, for doing that for me and Buck and those guys. Let me go ahead on and start giving these shots out, man, real quick, man. Talk about the coaches real quick, and then talk about some of my teammates, etc. I don't want to go too long, but I want to, like I said, just let y'all know I appreciate being a part of that at that time. One thing that I loved about Coach Ball, man, what he did, and I just felt like this, and guys, we can come over here and talk about this as much as y'all would like to. I felt like Coach Ball did a good job of picking his staff, man. His staff was great. What I loved about Coach Ball was this: he picked his staff to do their job. And he seemed like, for me, as a player watching, he never got in the way of them doing their job. He believed in them so much on what they was capable of doing, he let them fully do what they were supposed to do. And I think that's the reason why, the main reason why at Western we had so much success. You know, I feel like in life, if I ever owned a business, I'm going to pick the right people and let them get out the way and let them do what they're supposed to do. And I got to trust that. And I think Coach Ball did a good job with that. And to say that without saying, the next person I want to talk about is Coach Wilt. Coach Wilt, boy, he was mad. Coach Ball, I love him, but Coach Wilt was one of my favorites as well for this reason. He had that hard-nosed, roughneck image and thing about him that they only come around like him once in a while, man. He's a generational guy. He's a generational coach. And all Leathernecks, where you was on offense with me, because I ain't play defense. You had love for Coach Wilt. Coach Wilt didn't say much or nothing. Let me tell you who he looked like, man. Y'all gonna crack up laughing. I don't know. Me, I watched a lot of TV as a kid. You know, I had played by myself a lot, but I used to watch this show called Incredible Hulk, man. This guy named David Banner. You know, real nice, built up. He had green eyes like Coach Wilt, looked just like Coach Wilt to a T. So anybody that know what I'm talking about, y'all probably dying laughing because he looked like David Banner in this little show called Incredible Hulk. And what would happen is this guy, he was a little smaller, he wasn't as big, but then when he got mad or people beat on him or something in this show, he would crawl up and then he'd turn into the Incredible Hulk and get swole and ripped through his clothes, and he looked just like Coach Wilt to a T because Coach Wilt was swole up. And let me tell you about Coach Wilt. So at Western Illinois, man, Coach Wilt put mental toughness in all of us. Offense, defense. If you went to Western, he installed mental toughness. Let me tell you about this man. Man, at the weight room, man, we had a little small weight room. We didn't have all that big luxury stuff. We had a smaller weight room with mirrors everywhere. And what Coach Wilt was doing, he was installing toughness in your mind, whether the weather elements, if your body ain't hurt, you fine. But this, let me tell you how we used to lift weights with this man. This man be in this little bitty weight room, man. I'm telling you, man. And he turned the heat up to about 400 degrees. I might be exaggerating, but about maybe 200 degrees, where the mirrors all fogged up. You can't see nobody. It's like we're in a sauna, like almost closest thing to a sauna you could possibly think of. And you had to go in there for 1 hour. You know what I'm saying? And he was in there. We in there in tank tops with our shirt off. You barely could breathe. It's 1 hour. We lifting weights. We getting swollen. That's the first time I ever lift weights, by the way. I never lift weights until I got to Western. I didn't think weights was worthy, but I needed them. But Coach Wiltman had us in that weight room 1 hour. And he was standing there 2 and 3 hours in a row. Coach Wilt was an official G. He was a dog beyond dogs. In this weight room, we got on t-shirts. We got on no shirts. We can't breathe. 1 whole hour. He locked the doors. You can't get out. Once you come in, you can't get out. So don't come in here if you can't get it done. And that's just the way he was made. It was mental toughness. And let me tell you what this man would always have on. True story, no joke. Anybody Leathernecks, let me know if I'm lying. Coach Wood will have on 2 big old sweaters. The big sweaters with the big weight belt tied up tight, and he was swole up. You know what I'm saying? And just we couldn't believe how he was older, how he was strong as hell, stronger than all of us, how him and Coach Melvin, all of them, how they was that way and they were older, but to have that kind of mental toughness where we can barely breathe, and him to be in that weight room with the 2 big thick sweaters and the big old weight belt in there screaming and lifting and doing everything in the world. Hats off to that, and so much respect to Coach Wilt, man, because he never really complimented people too much. He never was jumping up and down. He'd chew your butt out when he needed to, but as far as like patting you on the back and complimenting you, man, that ain't his style. He just like look at you, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes if I did something that he thought was cool, or like even like the punt return for a touchdown, he wasn't, everybody was jumping up, cheering, and good job. He'd just go like this, nod his head, and that was enough for me because I already knew how he was, you know what I mean? So with that hit my heart. Coach Will, I really appreciate you being how you is. You know what I'm saying? I know you got a story too because you're real close, man. You know what I mean? But I got to let you know, man, you meant a lot to me. I love the way you carried yourself. I love that mental toughness you put in us, man. I remember another little time in the same weight room, you was doing the skull crushers. You know what I'm saying? And this man busted his head open, wide open, blood squirting everywhere. Dog went outside. True story. Leathernecks. Dog went outside for a minute. Wiped that blood off his head, came back in, put the pre-wrap around his head where he just split it open, probably like had needed about 20 stitches probably. Blood was everywhere. Wiped that blood off, put the pre-wrap on the forehead, and went back in that weight room and got it done. And then after everybody was done, went to got the stitches. If that ain't a G, I don't know what a G is, man. But shout out to you, Coach Wilt, man. And I ain't going to leave the rest of y'all out, man. Coach Downey, Coach Melvin, Coach Rimmer, man, a lot of y'all Leathernecks staff, man, y'all was really great at what y'all did, and we were successful because of the things that y'all would do. So let me give my shout out to my running backs, man. The first year I got to Western, I played running back, man, and I remember like everybody laughed at me, man. There was only one guy that didn't laugh at me, man. His name was Eddie Joe. Edward Josephs, man. He was my guy. He was my fullback. You know what I mean? But when I got to Western, I wasn't a very big